students, welcome to the maths lesson for today. The topic we're going to be looking at is, as you can see from the projector screen, simple and compound interest. Now, I know this is a topic we've covered before in class, but from my experience, most of you do struggle when it comes to calculations involving compound interest. So that's why I want to go over this topic again, starting of course by refreshing your memory on how we calculate simple interest, and then proceeding or moving on to compound interest. And I will do this by going over a couple of questions with you. Now, these questions I've given you in the past before, but because we haven't had the time to go over the questions together, that's why I've decided to bring the questions again, and then we go over the solution step by step together. So if you're ready, let's proceed. Now that's question one. Question one reads, find the simple interest on 95,000 naira for 4 years at 2.5% per annum. Okay, now this is simple interest, and I want to believe most of you, if not all of you, should not have any problems when it comes to calculating simple interest. But I will refresh your memory to bring everyone to the same level. Okay, now of course the formula for calculating simple interest is principal times rate times time over 100. So it's important for you to be able to correctly identify what the principal is from the question, what the rate is, and also what the time is. Okay, now of course the 95,000 naira is your principal, which is of course the amount you're starting with. The rate, 2.5%, the rate is usually given as a percentage. The rate in this case is 2.5%. And of course the time, 4 years. And the time also is normally given in years. The time in this case is 4 years. So to calculate simple interest, all you need to do is to put in these values into the formula for calculating simple interest. So you have simple interest will be the principal, 95,000, times the rate, 2.5. Now of course the 2.5, I've changed to decimal, that's 2.5, and then the time, 4 years, over 100. Okay, now let's cut the 2 zeros here, we'll cancel the 2 zeros there, and you will have 950 times 10. Of course, when you multiply 2.5 by 4, that gives you 10. And 950 times 10, that gives you 9,500. So that is the simple interest. I want to believe all of you, understand that, and you can even do that on your own. Calculating simple interest. It's quite simple and straightforward. So there you go. Next example. Want to find how much 250,000 naira amounts to if it is saved for 3 years at 4% simple interest. Again, this is simple interest. Okay, you have your formula. There's a standard formula which by now I expect all of you to know, and you should be able to recall offhand. Simple interest is P times R times T over 100, where P, of course, is your principal, R, the rate as a percentage, and time, T, in years. So again, you must be able to correctly identify the principal, in this case 250,000, which is what you started with or what you are investing, the amount of money you are investing. That is your principal. The rate, 4%, and the time, 3 years. Okay, so putting all these values into the formula for finding the simple interest, what do you have? Simple interest will be the principal, 250,000, times the rate, 4, times time 3 over 100. Again, we cut the 2 zeros here. We'll cancel 2 zeros from the 250,000, and you have 2,500 times 4 times 3. And when you do that, you get 30,000 naira. So the simple interest after 3 years at 4%, when you invest 250,000, will give you 30,000 naira. That would be the simple interest. Now, of course, like I told you, you need to really read the question very carefully. If the question asks you to find the total amount that you have after 3 years, then you have to add the simple interest to the principal to get the total amount. So if I were you, if I want to take this a step further, the amount after 3 years will now be the principal 250,000 plus the interest, which is added on top after 3 years. That's 30,000. And so the total amount will be 280,000 naira. So just in case, if you were asked what the total amount is after 3 years, once you've gotten the simple interest, you now add that to the principal to get the total amount after 3 years. So take note and always read the question very carefully. Next up, number 3. After 1 year, a principal of 55,000 naira amounts to 56,100. What is the rate of interest? So in this case, we're looking for the rate, okay? And from the amounts given here, you should be able to work out what the simple interest is, okay? So the time is just 1 year. Time is given. The principal is 55,000 naira. And then the amount, that is the amount you have after a year, is 56,100. And then of course, the rate is what we're looking for. We want to find what the rate is. So how do we proceed? Now in this case, we can find or we can calculate the simple interest given the principal and the amount. You subtract the principal from the amount to get the simple interest. So in this case, the simple interest will be 56,100 minus 55,000, and that gives you 1,100. So the simple interest in this case is 1,100. So we already have a value for the simple interest. The simple interest is not what we're looking for, all right? Rather, we're looking for the rate. Okay, so again, you start the formula for finding the simple interest, PRT 100. But now, you will make R the subject of the formula because it's the rate we're looking for, not the simple interest. Already, we have the simple interest, we have a value for the simple interest, so that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the rate, so we have to rearrange the formula and make R the rate subject. And how do you do that? You cross multiply. And when you cross multiply, well, of course, this is what you will have, but of course, when you cross multiply, you have 100 times SI is equal to PRT. Now, I want to make R the rate the subject, so you divide both sides by PT. Divide both sides by PT. Divide both sides by PT. So that this P will cancel that P. This T will cancel that T, and you left R, which is now your subject, okay, and that's 100 times SR over PT. So there you go. We have the simple interest, we've got the principal, and then we've got the time. Now you've got to be careful, don't mix up the principal and the amount. You've got to be careful, and the amount is always greater than the principal. That's how you can tell difference between the two. The amount will always be greater than the principal. Okay, so when you put in these values, you will have the regular 100 times the simple interest, which is 1,100, over the principal, which is 55,000, and then times the time. The time is just 1 year. All right. So there you have it. So let's cut. When you cut 2 zeros, we'll cancel 2 zeros there. This 1 0 will knock off 1 0 there. And then of course, you can divide by 11. 11 goes in 55, just 5 times. 11 goes in 110, 10 times. 5 and 5 just once, and 5 and 10, 2. Okay? And so the rates, therefore, is 2%. And that's it. And that's how we go about calculating the rate. So far, so good. All we are doing is simply using the same formula, and depending on the question, you rearrange the formula to find whatever unknown you're looking for. And as it is in this case, we're asked to find the rate. We rearrange the formula by making the rate R the subject, and then substituting the values accordingly. And when you need to cut, you cut until you can't cut anymore, and then you write down your final answer. Okay, moving on. So now in the next example, we'll go into calculating compound interest proper. So let's see what the example is. Now, it says use the method of example 4. Now, I'm not going to concentrate on using different methods now because I'm preparing you for the exam now. And remember, the method I'm going to show you is a method which will save you time in the exam, and you will also understand and appreciate better how you go about calculating compound interest. So, you've been asked to find the amount. You've been asked to find the amount that 700,000 naira becomes if saved for 2 years at 6% per annum compound interest. And the question goes a step further. You've been asked to give your answer to the nearest naira. Okay, so always take note of that. You've been asked to give your answer correct to the nearest naira. So when you get your final answer, just make sure you cross-check and be absolutely sure it confers to the question. Alright, so first thing first, let's identify the values we are giving. We've got the principal, that's the 700,000 naira. That's how much you're starting with. You've also got the time, so the 700,000 naira is going to be invested for 2 years, that's the time. And you've got the rate, 6% per annum. 6% every year, per annum, every year. So the 6% is the interest rate added every year. Okay, so for compound interest, you first of all work out the total percentage. How do you work out the total percentage? You work out the starting percentage, which is 100%, plus the rates, 6%. So the compound interest will give a total percentage of 106%. And 106% you convert to a fraction. That's 106 divided by 100, which is also converted to a decimal. 106 over 100 is simply 1.6. And what you do when you divide by 100 is you simply move the decimal point 2 places to the left. 1, 2. So you have 1.06. So this will be your multiplier. Take note, this will be your multiplier. And how do we apply the multiplier? You start for the first year, you take your multiplier, and then you multiply by the principal. So for the first year, at the end of the first year, what are you going to have? 742,000 naira. But you're not going to stop there because you're going on to the second year. So at the end of the second year, let's see what this will amount to. So this value at the end of the first year now becomes your principal at the beginning of the second year. Alright, so when we get to the second year, again still using the same multiplier of 1.06. You multiply that by the 742,000 and you have 786,520. 786,520. So that is what you have at the end of the second year. And that's how far you're meant to go. Okay, so that will be your answer. So therefore, after 2 years, when you start off with 700,000 naira, after 2 years, you will have in your account 786,520. Now, this says the nearest naira. Now, because we don't have any decimal part, this is okay. Your answer is just that. If you had a decimal part, that's when you now need to round off the decimal part to the nearest naira, because we don't want any decimal part. Okay, so that's it. So these are the steps you follow when calculating compound interest. Let's see yet another example. Okay, now you've been asked to find what 156,000 naira will amount to in 2 years at 4.5% per annum. Again, you've been asked to give your answer correct to the nearest naira. Okay, you start off by identifying all the quantities you've been given, your principal, which in this case is 156,000 naira, your time is just for 2 years, and then the rate is 4.5%, or if you like 4.5%. So to calculate compound interest, okay, you will first of all write down the total percentage. What's the total percentage? The 100% plus the rate. 100 plus 4.5, that gives you 104.5%. 104.5% as a fraction is 104.5 over 100. Then as a decimal, remember, when you divide it by 100, you simply move the decimal point 2 places to your left. Well, this decimal point moves 2 places to the left. So the decimal point now comes right there. So as a decimal, this becomes 1.045. So this now becomes your multiplier. Okay, so your multiplier is now 1.045. So you start with the first year, you take the multiplier and you multiply that by the principal, 156,000 naira. So by the end of the first year, what do you have? When you multiply that, you get 163,020 naira at the end of the first year. But you don't stop there. You move on to the second year. So at the beginning of the second year, this will be your principal. Okay, so at the beginning of the second year, again, you still multiply that by the multiplier in this case, which is 1.045. So 1.045 times 163,020 naira. When you do that, at the end of the second year, what do you have? So this is what you have. You have 170,355 naira, 90 kobo. Aha! But now, remember, the question says, give your answer to the nearest naira. This, of course, has got 90 kobo. 90 kobo. So the 90 kobo, you round up to the nearest naira. 90 kobo, when rounded up to the nearest naira, gives 1 naira. So that 1 naira will be added to that. And so your final answer will be, so the amount after 2 years, rounded to the nearest naira, will be 170 naira, 170,000 naira, I should say, 170,356 naira, okay? And that is your answer. Alright? So, again, you can see clearly the steps you follow when you are answering questions with regards to the compound interest. We'll look at some more examples, and I want you to actually give these examples, the examples that will follow next, I want you to give those examples a try before you see the solutions I've got on the board. Okay, and hopefully if your answer corresponds to mine, then of course you have actually understood how to answer questions or how to solve questions involving compound interest. So let's see the next example. Right, so there you go. Always make sure that your answer confirms with the question. Remember, the question says, give the answer to the nearest naira. Answers given to the nearest naira, by rounding the fractional parts, because we don't want any fractions. Okay? So next example. Mr. M saves 900,000 naira at 6% compound interest. So you've been told from start here, it's compound interest. And then A, you've asked to calculate the amount after 3 years to the nearest naira. The amount after 3 years to the nearest naira. So we're going for 3 years here, not 2 years. We're going up to 3 years in this question. And then for the B part, hence, find the compound interest. Aha! Now you've got to be careful here, because when you get your value from A, you need that value for you to be able to find the compound interest for B. Okay? So let's see how we go about doing that. Now, for the A part, you've been asked to calculate the amount after 3 years to the nearest naira, or to the nearest, actually, 100 naira. Not to the nearest naira. In this case, you've been asked to give your answer correct to the nearest 100 naira. So take note. Take note of that. So that's the steps involved. Again, for compound interest, the total percentage in this case will be 100% plus 6%, which is the rate given. Okay? So 100% plus the rate, 6%. That gives 106%. 106% as a fraction, it's 106 over 100. Again, that's a decimal. You move the decimal point, when you divide it by 100, you move the decimal point 2 places to the left. And when you do that, you get 1.06. And so the 1.06 becomes the multiplier. That will be the multiplier. So we start for the first year, you take the multiplier, 1.06, times the principal, 900,000. And so at the end of the first year, what do you have? When you carry out this multiplication, you will end up with 954,000. So at the end of the first year, you will have 954,000 naira. But don't stop there. We're going up to 3 years. So you move on to the second year. And so for the second year, again, you have your multiplier. But this time, you will be multiplying by 954,000 naira. Okay? And when you do that, you will get 1,011,240 naira. And that's what you get at the end of the second year. But you're going one more year because you have a total of 3 years. So you still have one more year to calculate. And so in the third year, again, you have your multiplier, 1.06. But then, this is now carried over to the beginning of the third year. And so when you carry the multiplication, by the end of the third year, what do you have? When you carry the multiplication, this is what you end up getting. You get 1,071,914 naira, 40 kobo. Okay? But the question says, calculate the amount after 3 years, which is what we've done, but to the nearest naira. Take note of that. To the nearest naira. Now, if you give just that as your answer, you may not get full marks. You have to be sure that your answer is in line with the question. Okay? Calculate the amount after 3 years to the nearest naira. Of course, when you look at this is 914. 914 to the nearest naira. So 14, you just round down. That's why you've got the zeros there. If that was 50 and above, that's when you now round up. Because it's less, you round down. So there's your answer, correct to the nearest naira. So that answers the A part. Let's now move on to the B part of the question, which says hence. Hence, of course, means following from the A part of the question or using the answer from the A part. Find the compound interest, okay? And then how do we do that? So here's the B part. To find the compound interest, remember the amount minus the principal gives you the interest. And as stated in this case, it's the compound interest, okay? So you have 1,071,900, which of course is the amount after 3 years minus the principal, which was the amount we started with. And we started with 900,000 naira. So when you subtract that, what do you get? That's exactly what you get. 0,091,7. Now you can subtract 9 from 0, so you're going to have to borrow. When you borrow, that reduces to 0, and that becomes 10. 10 minus 9 gives you 1. So that is your compound interest. So the compound interest after 3 years is 171,900. Okay, so the compound interest 171,900. Now it doesn't matter if it was simple interest, we would follow the same steps. To get a simple interest, it will be the amount after a certain number of years minus the principal, which is what you started with, to get the interest. And as it is in this case, it's the compound interest. Okay, so that's that for the B part of the question, and we're done with question number 6. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Now, for the next question, you have Madam R borrows 1 million naira to pay for a wedding. Now, a finance company agrees to lend her the money for 2 years at 12% compound interest. Wow, that is a very high percentage rate. Okay, now how much does she have to pay back at the end of the 2 years? Okay, so Madam R borrows 1 million naira for a wedding. Okay, and the interest rate is 12%. And she has to pay back this money with the interest after 2 years. So I want to know how much she gets to pay back. Okay. Now, you may want to pause the video and give this question a try. Okay. And then once you're done, you can then check your answer with what I have, just to be absolutely sure we are together and you actually understand the steps involved in calculating compound interest. Okay, so if you're done, let's go over the solution, and fingers crossed, let's just hope that your answer is indeed correct, and if it is, then you are really understood calculations involving compound interest. So let's see, identify the variables you're given. We're given the principal, which is 1 million naira. And then the time, the amount is going to be borrowed, or the principal, I should say, is going to be borrowed for 2 years. They're going to pay back after 2 years. So let's calculate how much we pay back after 2 years. So the rate also is given. The rate is very high, 12%. That's the rate. So once you identify all the quantities given, let's go ahead and use them in the calculation, because it's also important for you to be able to correctly identify the given quantities. Make sure you identify the given quantities correctly first, okay, and then you can proceed with the calculations. So for the compound interest, first thing first, what will be the total percentage? You start with 100 plus the rate, which is 12%. So the total percentage here is 112%. 112% as a fraction is 112 over 100. 112 over 100 as a decimal. What is that? Remember, when you divide it by 100, you're simply moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. 1, 2. And so as a decimal, you have 1.12, and that will be the multiplier for this question. So the multiplier is 1.12. So for the first year, you have... Right, so with the multiplier of 1.12 times the principal of 1 million. So at the end of the first year, what do you have? You have 1,120,000, okay? But we have to move on to the second year. So the second year, so this value you've got at the end of the first year now goes on to the beginning of the second year, and you multiply that by the multiplier of 1.12. So by the end of the second year, what do you have? You have 1,254,400 naira. And so the amount to be paid back at the end of the second year will be just that. 1,254,400. Okay? And that answers the question. However, if you were asked what the compound interest is, then you simply subtract the principal, which is 1 million, from the amount after 2 years, which is 1,254,400, and that gives you 254,400 as a compound interest. Okay? But that's just in case if you were asked the compound interest. Okay? But as far as this question is concerned, once you've done that, you're done. Alright? So I hope your answer was actually correct, same as mine. If it is, well done. So that shows that you've really understood the calculations involved when it comes to calculating compound interest. Alright, now for the few examples we've got, I want you to take these questions down and attempt them. Alright? Attempt those questions and let me know. Send me your answers. Drop me a mail with your answers and let me know if indeed you got the questions right. Okay, so for question number 8, you have a person saves 650,000 naira at 4% compound interest and adds 150,000 to the amount at the end of each year. You gotta be careful here. So you have an amount that's been added every year. Take note. What are the total savings after 3 years? Again, to the nearest naira. So be careful with this question, alright? Next, number 9. The population of a town increases by 2% each year. 3 years ago, the population was 447,000. What is the population now? Give your answer to 3 significant figures. Now, this question is a bit tricky. I want you to think a little bit. Alright? Take your time with that question. And let's see how many of you will be able to get that question right. Okay? That is a bit of a challenge. Now, let's see the last question. Number 10. Due to depreciation, now with depreciation, the percentage will not be going up, rather the percentage will be coming down. So take note, when you have depreciation or a reduction in the value of something, the percentage will not go up, rather it comes down. So take note. So due to depreciation, a moped is like a bike, loses 20% of its value every year. So if a new moped costs 540,000 naira, find its value 2 years later. So just to take note, the percentage here will be 100% minus, because it's depreciated, minus 20%. It's depreciating by 20%. So that gives you 80%, and 80% as a fraction is 80 over 100. And your decimal in this case is 0.8. So 0.8 will be your multiplier, so take note of that. 0.8 will be your multiplier for that question. So using that multiplier, you've been asked to find the value of the moped, a new moped that costs 540,000 naira. What would be its value after 2 years if it depreciates by 20%? So again, give these questions a go. And let me know how you go home. You can drop me a mail with your answers and I will respond accordingly. Having said that, that brings us to the end of today's lesson. And like I said, if you have any questions, any comments, any queries, drop me an inbox and I'll be able to answer the questions and get back to you. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you again.